Hello everybody, good morning and welcome to the United Stand. This is your latest Manchester United news and transfer news, and I'm Mark Goldbridge, and we've got lots to talk about as an Amrabat bid goes in and doesn't go in and does go in. We'll talk about where that's going on. Alfredo de Padula and Fabrizio Romano have been fantastic on the Italian transfers for Manchester United this season, and they're both giving us updates in relation to what's happened with that. There's also been a Rasmus Hojlund price backlash. Let the haters hate is what I would say. Just want to say right at the start of the show, as you know, I have had a bit of interaction with Rasmus Hojlund. I did, and I don't think it massively matters because he's a Man United player now and it's a bit different. Now he's a Manchester United player and he's not going to be giving team news and stuff like that. And obviously the club will get control of that social media interaction as they always do. But one message he did send last night, and I did put it as a reply on my Twitter, because obviously he was aware of the hotter than the sun. He just sent a very simple message last night, and it was fire, sun, and then a devil. So fantastic. And look, if there's any interaction again, great. If not, we got it. Rasmus Hojlund, we were spot on as a community. We've been saying it for a long time. And I think the big positive about Rasmus Hojlund is that, you know, this hotter than the sun theme we've had for 2 months has really built the excitement around a player. And it's clever and it's great because there are a lot of United fans who are really excited about this player. And I think United could learn a lot about that and interaction with fans, because ultimately Rasmus Hojlund's not even officially a Man United player now yet, and he's already a massive fan favourite because of the ability to interact and be part of the story. So well done to him. We'll talk a bit about Hojlund in a minute. A lot of people saying you got the price wrong, Mark. I did get the price wrong, but if you check what David Ornstein and Fabrizio Romano said 3 days ago, they also said 50 million euros, which was between 40 and 50 million pounds. So what went wrong in 3 days? From 50 million euros to 70 million euros. What went wrong? We'll discuss that in a minute. What went right? Medical will be probably Monday or Tuesday. It'll be in an official Man United shirt by Wednesday or Thursday, I think, and hopefully involved in the pre-season games. How's the head this morning, Mark? Few beers in the old man cave last night. Yeah, I'm sweating up a bit, actually. I'm feeling a bit rough, but we're fine. We're going to talk about Amrabat first, though. We'll come back to Hojlund. We'll talk about the critics. Let the haters hate. It's already actually started within the media, the Man United media. We'll talk about that. Also, a little bit about yesterday. Obviously, Adidas came out yesterday in response to the story by The Sun, saying they have not and would not give United the green light for Mason Greenwood or any other player. So Adidas, absolutely fantastic in what they did yesterday. You know, I think when these stories come out, it's clever, if you're mentioned, to come out and dispute it and say, no, we didn't have anything to do with that. So lots to get into. We're going to start off with Amrabat, because we have a story that came in last night, around sort of midnight it came in last night, from Alfredo Padula, who has been up there with Di Marzio and with Fabrizio this summer in relation to Manchester United transfer news. And he basically said that in relation to Amrabat, the bid had gone in from Manchester United. Now, I'll quickly follow that up so it doesn't land and people start thinking, ooh. Fabrizio has come out this morning and said an official bid hasn't gone in. Talks will take place with Fiorentina. Amrabat wants to join Manchester United. Amrabat is a target for Manchester United, but an official bid hasn't gone in. Padula said last night a bid had gone in. So, look, I don't think you've got two extremes of the cookie there. I don't think you've got one credible and one not credible. I think the truth and the clarity of it will be that United are probably negotiating with Fiorentina and talking about fees, which is what Padula's talking about, and Romano is saying the official bid hasn't gone in yet. So I don't think it's an extreme of we haven't bid or we have bid. I would suspect, as we know with United, we only do an official bid when we know we're going to get a bid accepted. So I would imagine we're sort of talking about the price at the moment. The player obviously isn't touring with Fiorentina. He's back in Italy training individually, as we understand. There has been talk of Saudi Arabia being interested in Amrabat. I mean, that could be a challenge at some point. I don't think there's another Premier League club looking at it either. So I think that this Amrabat deal is obviously going to get done at some point. How long is a piece of string, I suppose. It's interesting because when Hojlund talks started about a week ago, a lot of people thought we were going to get it last weekend or early last week, and I always felt that this deal from United's point of view would be timed for United to come back from the tour and Hojlund to hold the shirt up. Well, United are back from the tour on Wednesday, so I think, and obviously that's going to happen. Timing is everything, isn't it? And I think with Amrabat, probably what we see next is, obviously next week, United could waste the whole week doing the Hojlund deal, they could waste all next week doing that. They could get Amrabat in as well. Or more realistically, I think it will be spent on offloading a few players, maybe Fred, Henderson on loan to Forest. So I think that those sort of deals will be interesting. I also think you've got to take into account that players coming back from tour might have realised now how little game time they've had and start looking for moves as well. Maybe the Harry Maguires of this world. Amrabat to go crazy. We give some credit to Murta for working fast on deals for a change, says Lil. And it's not on for this show, but I really want us to keep and help Mason Greenwood because he's one of our own. I hope we don't loan his problems to Italy, says Gianos. Thank you very much for that. We're raiding Serie A, said a few people there. Mao says, what's happening with Suzuki? And, well, I don't know. Man United do need a reserve goalkeeper. Dean Henderson will not want that job. Tom Heaton might well do it again, if he's good enough or not. Apparently United do like Suzuki, but there is a bit of concern about whether he's ready to be a reserve goalkeeper. I think he's perfect to be a reserve goalkeeper because I think Anana, will be predominantly the number one and Suzuki can learn underneath him. Is there news on outgoings? If so, would there be more funds for another striker, says Enzumo? Well, it's interesting, isn't it? I mean, I don't like saying I told you so, but I think you win as a community and you lose as a community. And certainly last night and this morning, we're going to talk about Hojlund now. It is a justification of the fact that we've been saying for a long time that this deal was hotter than the sun, a very long time, and it's happened. And that's just because of good information. Will there be one of the other things I said is that we will spend £200 million this summer, and a lot of people were like, no, that's not going to happen. And I said, come back on August the 31st, we'll spend £200 million this summer. Well, you might not even have to come back in a month because we've actually spent, and I'm not even going to include add-ons. I think if you include add-ons, you're probably not far off the 200 million now, but we've literally spent 60 on Hojlund, 55. That's 115, and add the 45 onto. We spent about 160 million quid already. And if Amrabat comes in, you're very close to the 200 million there. With the add-ons, it's over 200 million. So we will sign another player, and I think it will be Amrabat. I'd still like to see us buy a centre back, and that will push us to nearly 250. And I think that's what Erik ten Hag wants. It's interesting, though. I just want to talk about Hojlund for a moment. On a positive, I am so excited about this signing. I've been excited about it for a very long time. It's exactly the sort of player that Manchester United should be signing. This is a striker for a generation. I'm not saying he's a generational talent. He's a striker for generation. I was saying this last night down the pub. I've not been excited about a striker like this probably since Van Persie, really. And even that was going to be short term. When was the last time we had a striker at this club where you could reasonably say if he's successful, he could be at the club for the next 5 years? Of course, if he's really successful, he might go Real Madrid in 5 years. But he's 20 years of age. We've got a developmental manager. We've got a striker who's really exciting. We haven't had a striker like this in ages. The Falcaos, the Zlatans, the Ronaldos, the Cavani's were past their best and not going to be here very long. The Igalas, the Weghorsts, the loan deals were just loan deals. We haven't had a striker like this in ages. And you know what? I think we've been deprived. I think we've lost sight of what should be the star of your team. It should be a striker that scores goals that excites you the most. Most teams have that. Spurs fans have it with Harry Kane. Man City fans have it with Rasmus Hojlund. This is what we should have at United, and we haven't had buzz and excitement about a long-term vision striker for a very long time. So I'm really excited about it. Of course, it could go wrong. Of course it can go wrong, but I think it's really exciting to have a player like that, and we have been deprived of that for a long time. Hate seeing Sky Sports hating on Hojlund, 9 goals last season, whoop-de-doo, saying what Rashford did, and then following season smashed 30 goals. Well, look, Slow Sports News, let's just talk about this for a moment, because look, even James Ducker, who is a Man United correspondent, and I'm not having a pop at James for anything here at all, but what he put there, he actually got a lot of crap in the replies for, but look, I think the angle is just, well, this is what he said. Rasmus Hojlund moved from Copenhagen to Sturm Graz for 1.8 million euros in January last year. 1.8 million euros in January last year. 19 months and 22 goals later, he's joining Manchester United for 70 million euros with add-ons. He could prove a hit, but it's a big gamble. And United have committed £406 million on players under Erik ten Hag. Now, what's your interpretation of a statement like that? That, to me, is about what I'm waking up to this morning. That to me is the sort of stuff that we are seeing this morning, where people are basically now almost sharpening the knives for Ten Hag, sharpening the knives for, you know, Man United overspending. And I think that, you know, a few people saying they agree with James. I mean, look, it's interesting, isn't it? Young, hungry development striker is what we need, says Bailey. My excitement for Rasmus Hojlund signing for United is infinite, and I've been excited about this for 2 months. The price is not going to make me change my mind about what I've been saying for the last 2 months about how exciting a talent he is, and Ten Hag's a developmental striker. So the price has got nothing to do with Rasmus Hojlund. So if Rasmus Hojlund was watching, or Erik Ten Hag was watching, this and what I'm about to discuss has got nothing to do with the excitement and talent of this player, and he will be backed and he will be supported 100%. 100%. The business side of this deal, I will acknowledge, and I have to acknowledge because I have to clarify what I've been saying to you for weeks as well. I don't know what went wrong on the fee on this deal. We've had it rammed down our throat for the last 2 months that we negotiated so well for Mason Mount, that we negotiated so well for Onana. I don't think we did. I think Mason Mount for 55 million was 5 million too much. I think Onana was spot on. I don't think we got them cheap. I don't think we did it quick. We paid around market value over a few weeks negotiating. I think the players are good, but I don't, from a purely negotiation point of view, it baffled me why people were blowing smoke up the arse of Arnold and Murta. I don't think we did anything spectacular with those deals. I think the players are good, but financially I don't think they're great. Now, Rasmus Hojlund again, fantastic, really excited. But let's talk about the fee. I was told, and obviously I was told a long time ago, that Rasmus Hojlund would sign for United, hotter than the sun, hashtag. But what I was also told, and you're quite right, and a few people tweeted me about last night, you were miles off on the price, Goldbridge. I was miles off on the price because I was told United would pay between 40 and 50 million pounds, which is not 70 million euros, and then add-ons. That's what I was told. And people can go, oh yeah, your sources are shit. That's fine. Haters are going to hate. But the reality is the videos are there, hotter than the sun from end of May, early June. And now he's signed for United. So I know how good the source is. So what went wrong with the price? Well, look, I always said between 40 and 50 million pounds with add-ons is what we would pay. On Wednesday, Fabrizio Romano, you can check the tweets. Man United's bid 50 million euros plus 10 million euros in add-ons. David Ornstein, 50 million euros plus 10 million in euros is United's bid. So what is 50 million euros? It's between 40 and 50 million pounds. So they are very good journalists. I'm not a journalist. I get a bit of information, but they get it every bloody day. Ornstein and Romano are saying 50 million euros plus 10 on Wednesday. I've been saying to you for weeks, 40 to 50 million pounds, which is around 50 million plus 10 in add-ons. Saturday night, we're paying 70 million euros plus 10 in add-ons. So between Wednesday and Saturday, the established media, and also what I'd heard, was 50 million euros plus add-ons. By Saturday night, it's gone up by 20 million euros. You know, it's gone up by about 30%. So, look, do what you want with that information, but I don't know. I don't know what you think about it. I don't know why that happened, but we were never negotiating that high. It was always going to be 40, but let's do it in euros. It was always going to be 50 million euros plus 10 in add-ons. It's now 70 million euros plus 10 in add-ons. So it's gone up in 20 million. Atalanta have got a good deal. He's overpriced at that. And I like Hojlund. He's overpriced at 70 million plus 10. It's a lot of money for a 20-year-old. But what I would say is, if he's a success, like I think he will be, that price won't matter. If he's a failure, he would have been laughed at for 50 million euros as much as he'd be laughed at for 70. So ultimately, the money doesn't really matter. Our job is to get behind the player, and that's where we are, and support the player, and that's what we will do. Obviously, you're going to see rivals going overrated, this, that, and the other. I find it quite funny because you know what? When Liverpool spent 80 on Nunez last summer, I didn't say anything about it really. I was like, I think he's a good striker. Ultimately, if he scores the goals, he won't be overpriced. If he flops, he will be overpriced. But other clubs, it's like opinions, isn't it? Everyone's got an arsehole, everyone's got an opinion, and ultimately, if he scores goals, he won't be a flop. If he fails, he will be a flop. So we have overpaid a bit, of course we have. And ultimately as well, I would say that in the space of 3 days, it went up by 20 million euros. But people will tell you our negotiators are good at what they do. Well, I think it's very obvious, because you don't have to believe me. You can look at Romano, you can look at Ornstein. In the space of 3 days, we went from 50 million euros to 70 million euros. It's out there. It's out there. And yet people will say, oh, Murta madness. Arnold's doing a great job. Well, we can see what happened there. And I don't think that's great negotiating skills, especially when Rasmus Hojlund is desperate to come to Manchester United. He'd gone to a specific agency to get him a move to Manchester United. We hold all the cards. PSG are out of the race, and yet the price goes up by 20 million euros in 3 days. I think I don't know, and I don't really care, to be honest. Somebody in the chat just said, "Why do you think the price went up?" I haven't really thought about it massively. On the hop, I would say the price has gone up because United are desperate. They're desperate because they need a striker, and I think that's why the price went up. I think they could have gone, we're not going to pay any more than 50 million euros, and the player wants to come to us, and they could have dragged it out for a few more weeks. But I think ultimately Ten Hag has said, I haven't had a striker for the whole pre-season. The season starts in 2 weeks. I need a striker. And I think United have realised they fucked up a bit. Let's just get the striker in. I think they could have got him. I think it would have just took a lot longer to grind Atalanta down. And ultimately we needed a striker. So we chucked the 20 million on. I think that's what happened. And I think that's the logical thing. Feels like Erik Ten Hag just snapped and said, get it done. Exactly, Pete. I need him training with the team. We need him developing patterns. Exactly. And it's worth the 20 million to do that, let's be honest. I reckon Erik Ten Hag came down hard on Murta and said, get it done ASAP, hence we overpaid. See, a lot of people probably thinking the same. Daily, thank you very much. If funds allow it, won't you prioritise a second striker over a centre-back, says James. Hi, Mark. How Hojlund done? We also need an experienced striker, centre midfielder and a centre-back. I'll go for a player like Chiesa, says Jay. And Mark, with all these signings, are we making the same mistake Chelsea did last summer? Multiple signings and individuals and no cohesion or teamwork, says Connor. But I disagree with you on that, Connor, because I think that when I look at that United, when I look at the United signings, and it's interesting, I don't know whether anybody else saw this. I know Andy Cole said something the other day. Kane wants 570k a week from United. Any thoughts? Says Eric. He can piss off. I read something in the week about Andy Cole talking about Onana. I also read Dwight York talking about it as well and saying that David De Gea is a better goalkeeper than Onana, and all those people who criticise De Gea need to be very careful about what they wish for. Look, I'm a big fan of David De Gea, and I am, you know that. But ultimately, we've had the change now. There's no point lamenting on the past, and there's no point saying I told you so on that. We've gone for Onana because we need a ball-playing goalkeeper in the opinion of Erik Ten Hag. I don't think anybody massively disagrees with that. Whether you agree with the treatment of David De Gea at the end or not, the decision was made. That is what's happened, and I don't think that sort of conversation massively helps. But I bring it up because we know how the media works in this country. We've already had conversations or comment on the Hojlund deal. A lot of people, I'll tell you this now as well, just monitor the media over the next week. Monitor your journalists that you listen to over the next week. And when you're reading things, just go, oh yeah, I remember Goldbridge said this might happen. Watch for the subtle digs at the Hojlund deal because they wanted Kane. And that's what it's all about. It's like they wanted Poch, they got Ten Hag. They wanted Kane, we're getting Hojlund. And what will happen is they'll come round to Hojlund because they'll have to, but ultimately they want Kane. That's what this is all about. You'll see a load of people going, why spend 70 million euros on Rasmus Hojlund with add-ons when you could have chucked another 40 on and bought Harry Kane? And maybe you agree with that, but we will see a lot of that. What is one player we missed out on these past couple of years you wish you joined the club, says Taco. I can't think about that at the moment. My head is too blurry. Welcome to the Members Club, mate. Don't forget who was negotiating for Atalanta. Same person who we negotiated with Leicester for Maguire. Pants pulled down again, says Lil. It is pants pulled down, I suppose, but you know what it comes down to? It's just better negotiators. We don't have good negotiators, and people think that we do, and we don't. And the price is the price. I hope that Erik Ten Hag absolutely blows it blows the bloody. I hope Rasmus Hojlund blows the bloody doors off and is an absolute legend at this club, which I think he can be. But honestly, I think we all know the price went from 50 million euros to 70 million euros in the space of 3 days, and the only explanation is Ten Hag got mad and told them to just get the bloody deal done and stop pissing about. So we haven't got great negotiators, have we? We're in the football equivalent of the allegory in the cave. Transfers taking our focus off the sale. Smart action by the Glazers, says Mike. Mike, I completely agree with you. I don't know whether this resonates or hits a nerve with anybody this morning, but I thought exactly the same last night. I was sat there having a meal, drinking my Madri. The news came in of here we go, and the conversation around the table was instantly about the sale of Manchester United. And it's funny because Rasmus Hojlund's very, very welcome, and the conversation basically went along the lines of everybody's forgotten about the sale. You know, we've spent most of this year fantasising and predicting what's going to happen with the sale. We've bought a couple of players in July, and United fans are just completely locked in on transfers and how well we've negotiated and how it's a refreshing summer. I saw somebody last night say, it's so refreshing to see United getting business done early and well, and it's a really refreshing change. And I was like, fine, have your opinion, please do. That's what it's all about. But why are you wasting words of positivity about Man United when these people are facilitators to the Glazers, and it's still the Glazer money, although it's not their money, it'll be debt or something, that's maintaining this positive vibe? I welcome Rasmus Hojlund, I welcome Onana, I welcome Mount, and these are players that Ten Hag wants. But ultimately, this is not an ideal situation. The Old Trafford is still the same Old Trafford it was 20 years ago. It's not being worked on. The infrastructure is not being worked on. We are buying players. Are they the players that Ten Hag really wanted? In some cases, yes. In some cases, no. Are these signings good enough to challenge Arsenal and Man City? I don't think so. I think you need more. I think you need Hojlund and another striker. I think you need another centre-back. I think you need another midfielder. I think there's a lot that would be spent on that team that won't be spent because we've still got the Glazers in charge. But I also think I've just wasted 2 minutes of my life talking about the sale because I don't think it's a vibe that anybody has at the moment. Everybody seems to just be, and I think the Glazers are getting away with it. Price ain't his fault. Prices are crazy these days. Recruitment probably could have done better, but he's hungry and wants to win, says Bailey. I can't believe the super chat comparing our signings to Chelsea. We signed a couple of players we desperately needed, says Nick P. And English journalist already moaning that we signed Hojlund and not Kane. British bias again, says Stev. I have an answer on that one just before we move on to the next topic. Harry Kane to Manchester United. How is that deal going to happen? People say we should have bought Kane instead of Hojlund. We can't get Harry Kane. It's not a deal we can do for many reasons, but we couldn't do the deal anyway because our negotiators are rubbish, as we've just seen. We paid 20 million more than we offered on Wednesday for what we paid on Saturday. We can't negotiate a deal with Harry Kane. We haven't got the expertise to do that. We haven't got the expertise to get him out of Spurs. That's one reason. Second reason, even if you did have the expertise, like Chelsea maybe do, they can't get Harry Kane either, because Spurs are stubborn and will not sell him to the Premier League. So Spurs are being stubborn with Bayern Munich, but even Bayern Munich might not get Harry Kane. We would never have got Harry Kane. So all this, we could have put another 40 million quid on. They wouldn't have sold us Harry Kane. He wasn't going to be sold. Harry Kane would have come to United, but Spurs were not going to sell him. So I will defend the club on that. They couldn't do a deal for Harry Kane. There is no doubt that he was the number one priority for Erik Ten Hag this summer, from probably Christmas, and we couldn't get that deal done. So what do you do? I think it's an absolute nonsense argument to say we've spent 70 million euros on Hojlund and we could have spent another 40 and got Kane. No, we couldn't. We would not have got Kane for £100 million. They wouldn't have done the deal. They just wouldn't have done it. And especially when there's another horse in the race. Like Bayern Munich are in the race. Like we can't win that race. No. So we couldn't have got Kane. So it's petulant, silly, naive, idiotic commentary from people who say we should have got Kane instead of Hojlund because it wasn't on the table to get Harry Kane. And ultimately as well, we should be buying both. And maybe that might have happened with competent ownership, but we should be buying both. We're 3 strikers down from where we were a year ago. So we need 2 strikers, to be honest. As for Osman, forget about it. That was never happening in either, unless you got 150 million euros. Spurs would never sell Kane to us as it strengthens a rival, says James. Exactly. It was just never going to happen. And I know sometimes we can have a moan, and we moan because what we want, but I also think you have to be a realist in that case. We couldn't have done it. We couldn't have done that race. 500k a week for Harry Kane, apparently. I would love João Felix on loan. Definitely would like to see that happen. Just yesterday, of course, we were talking about Mason Greenwood's return. It would be remiss and wrong not to just go back to that story. So yesterday morning, there was a story in The Sun saying that Adidas, one of Man United's biggest sponsors, had a conversation with United and were open to Mason Greenwood coming back. We, of course, reacted to that story like we have a right to, and said, like, who gives a shit what Adidas say about Mason Greenwood? They're just a sponsor. Really, Man United should be, looking at the fan base and what they want as well. And a sponsor can change within a few years as well. So why would you talk to a sponsor? Fair play to Adidas. They came out yesterday, official comment saying we have not and would not be involved in those sort of conversations with Manchester United about players and whether they should play for the club. I think that was a very clever move from them, and it killed the story, and that's the best thing you can do. You come out and you kill the story. As for the Mason Greenwood conversation yesterday, it's very interesting. We don't shirk those conversations. I certainly got a lot of abuse yesterday from people saying that I was a rapist sympathiser. I also got a lot of people messaging me saying that abusing me for not wanting Greenwood back in the team. So it's interesting, isn't it? Because I never actually said which way I was going with the Mason Greenwood scenario, and I ended up getting abuse on both. But that's why a lot of people don't talk about it, because they're cowards. Ultimately, it's something that will happen. He will either be sold, loaned, or stay at Man United. So as a community, what are we going to do? Just bury our head in the sand and go, we're not going to discuss it? I think you have to discuss these sort of things. And as I say, if you want my stance, people are more than capable of putting lies out. They've been doing it for years and years and years. My stance has always been very consistent about Mason Greenwood. I think there's a duty of care while he's a Man United employee, which he is. I think there's a mental health risk as to he's still a human being, and if you put him in a Man United shirt away from home, he will be inflicted huge abuse, also from the media as well. He hasn't played in 18 months. I just think the obvious thing for me is to loan him out, let him get playing back football outside of the cauldron of the UK, in a foreign country where the news and the reports will be less hostile, and he can focus on his football, and that allows him to get back to playing football in a safer environment. It also allows Man United to monitor his progress, and you look at that situation over the next year. That's always been my stance on it. And my stance remains on that. But why Man United haven't come to that opinion, I don't know, because it's August in 2 days' time, and he could have been training for the last month for a club. He could have been training for the last month with Man United, I suppose. I don't get why he's not training with the football club for the last month. It's weird, and I don't know why United are taking so long on it, but we'll just have to wait and see. A decision is coming. Will we get it before the first game of the season? I don't know. Hi, Mark. I remember The Guardian last week saying United won't go over £60 million for Hojlund. Think that's when we priced ourselves up, says the killer man. Yeah, maybe. But look, we live in a world where people will trip you up the minute they think they've got you. And as I say, we, for 2 months, have been saying that Rasmus Hojlund would sign for United. And, oh, what a surprise, he has signed for United. But also, I will admit, for 2 months, I was saying the price will be between £40 and £50 million with add-ons. And I was a bit surprised last night when I saw the price came in. But I also distinctly remember and checked the tweets, unless they've deleted them, which they hadn't this morning, of David Ornstein and Fabrizio Romano on Wednesday saying €50 million plus 10. So they had the same knowledge. For some reason, in the last 3 days, United have added 20 million on. And I think the logical reason is because Erik ten Hag has said, stop pissing about. You've been negotiating for 2 months. Stop pissing about and get me a bloody striker, because I've just had a pre-season tour where I haven't got a number 9. I've got no striker. And we're going to start the season, and it's going to be a big season. And I can't work on patterns in relation to my final third and my striker when I haven't got somebody who can actually play the number 9 role. And I think he's probably blown his top and said, look, just get the bloody striker in. And United, who've been negotiating, have had to go, look, there's the money. I think that's what's happened. Anthony, welcome to Members Club. Thank you very much. And Tori says, Mark, have you noticed that Ten Hag has talked about Rashford attitude and his mindset in his last 2 press conferences? He's looked disinterested to me, says Tori. I have not picked up on this at all. I don't know what the angle is on that. I don't know whether Ten Hag is speaking about Rashford positively or trying to motivate him. It's a good question. I mean, pre-season's weird. We overanalyze pre-season because we get to watch pre-season. I mean, don't forget tonight, massively excited again. I loved the game against Real Madrid the other night, and we've got another one for you in the early hours, 2 o'clock club. Come on, Man United against Dortmund tonight. Can't wait. Love it. And I feed that, don't I? I'm loving that. I can't wait for the game tonight, and hopefully you're going to join me for it. But we do overanalyze pre-season. I mean, I remember a time, look, I've been supporting United since the 80s. So when we were on tour in the 90s, I wouldn't have watched a game. I wouldn't even know if you could watch a game. So you might get a paper report that United have beat somebody on tour, but you wouldn't give a shit because the first real interaction you'd have with that United team would be opening game of the season or the Charity Shield if they played in that. So there's always been players that in pre-season are just going through the motions, getting themselves fit and ready. Marcus Rashford could have a subpar pre-season. Bruno Fernandes could have a subpar pre-season. Opening game of the season, score. The best example is if Rasmus Hojlund had been here since the start of pre-season and missed a load of chances, you get called a flop in pre-season. And it's hilarious because score a hat-trick against Wolves, that's your first competitive game. Pre-season means nothing. And it works the other way round as well. But last year in the Community Shield final, Man City lost and Erling Haaland missed a couple of sitters. And some people were going, Erling Haaland's a flop. He went and smashed the goal record in competitive football. You can't read too much into pre-season. In the sense that if someone misses a chance, it doesn't mean that they're a flop. If someone scores a hat-trick, it doesn't mean they're a success. It's all about building towards competitive football, which kicks off 2 weeks tomorrow against Wolves. But look, Rashford's got to have a big season. Look, I'll be open about it. Marcus Rashford is a player in our fan base that does have detractors. There are people out there. Ricky's not a big fan of Rashford, is he? Respect. That's just the way it is. You can't. You're never going to please everybody. The most popular person in the world, if he's got 100, if you have 100 people, 10 people won't like them. It's just human nature. So, of course, Rashford's always going to have his critics, but the way to answer those critics is to do what he did last season and score goals. And there will be people saying, well, you know what? It's because he's got a new contract now. He's not going to be trying as hard. But I don't see that. He's a player that can. I was talking about Rashford about the Ballon d'Or last Christmas. If he can hit those heights consistently, he's a very important player for us. Just like us, rival managers will also keep guessing where Mount, Bruno, Sancho and Amrabat will play next season. Don't you think it's an advantage, says Akil? It could be an advantage. I just don't like any of those players playing on the right wing. Rasmus is a progressive signing, says Arch. However, I will always prefer to try for Casido, so that will cement the Casemiro replacement for good, says Arch. And welcome to Members Club, Greg. Really appreciate that. Well, look, thanks everyone for tuning in this morning. Really enjoyed the show. Lovely to react and be live talking about Rasmus, and let's see what happens with Amrabat. Fabrizio says an official bid hasn't gone in yet, but it looks very much like one will be going in very soon. Alfredo Padula saying that a bid had gone in. Let's see what happens. We've got Fabrizio on the show tomorrow afternoon, actually. I just feel a long way away, though, because we've got a match at 2 o'clock in the morning tonight. We'll have a preview as well, and I'm sure I'll do another video a little bit later on as well. Thanks everyone for watching, and make sure you smash a like on the video and subscribe. Joseph says nobody has overanalyzed the preseason more than Mark. Depends how it fits his narrative. Oh, Joseph, really? You know what? It's Sunday, probably a day off. Go out, go for a walk. Like, no one's being negative in here. If you want to believe the nonsense that gets put on Twitter about you know, the United Stand and me, then, you know, you haven't really watched the channel for 18 months, because if anything, we're probably a little bit too positive about, and we probably get a little bit too excited about things. Apologies for being excited and positive about this manager and what he's trying to do at this football club. The big overarching cloud of negativity is obviously the Glazers, and we won't stop talking about that. And there is still some deadwood that he's trying to get rid of. But in the main, Rasmus Hojlund, Mason Mount, Onana, Amrabat, these are positive signings to add to the positive signings he made last year, to add to the positive season we had last year, which gave us a trophy for the first time in years, put us in the Champions League, and I think there's some big positives to have. I think we do need new owners, and that can take us to the next level, but ultimately, I think we're in a positive position. We just need to fight for more, because first place is never enough, really. Thanks everyone for watching. Smash a like on the video. Make sure you subscribe. Let's block Chase. It's a shame, but you're gone. And I'll speak to you all in a bit. Thanks for watching.